Well, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and International Finance Corporation are hosting a forum on climate business in the Asia-Pacific as the city pushes to raise its profile as a hub for green finance. Let's bring in IFC APAC Regional Vice President Riccardo Puliti and BloombergNEF's Head of Asia-Pacific, Ali Izadi. And Ali, nice to have you in the Hong Kong studio this morning, but let's start with what we're expecting essentially out of this event this week.
So this event is a great opportunity for Hong Kong to showcase its position in the world of sustainable finance. If you look at the data over the last 5 years, Hong Kong has steadily raised its profile. Back in 2019, if you look at sustainable finance issuance across all the different instruments, green bonds, green loans, sustainability-linked loans, transition bonds, all the different types of instruments, the total amount was only about $3.1 billion. 2020, the number raised to 4.7 billion, 2021, 17.7 billion, and then 2022, almost 29 billion. And for last year, we're still tallying the numbers, but it looks to have already had a bit of a healthy growth of 16%. This is in contrast to the broader market, where the last 2 years we've actually seen sustainable finance issuance decline, in consideration of the fact that in many markets, measures that were in place during the pandemic have expired.
And so against the backdrop of that, Riccardo, where would you say that you're seeing opportunities?
I see a lot of opportunities here to develop further the knowledge of all financial products linked to energy transition and climate change, deepen knowledge of regulation, enhance regulation, make sure that accusations of greenwashing are not going to be there anymore, and make sure that investors and issuers alike are going to be comfortable with Hong Kong. And I think this is the right place where to do it. Hong Kong has the knowledge, the technical, the financial, the legal knowledge, is the right place where these kind of products can be built in a credible way.
Riccardo, what are you most excited about in terms of the types of technology, but also in different geographies, looking out from Hong Kong?
Yeah, listen, in terms of technology, I think that we have to try and develop all kinds of technologies. Some are more advanced than others. For example, we are big investors, we at IFC, in all emerging markets in Asia and other regions. We are very much supporting batteries, stationary batteries, batteries for cars, electric vehicles. I think that's a kind of chain which is working very well. Of course, renewables, we continue to be there. Grid, smart grid as much as possible. Digitalization of the whole system. I think in terms of energy, we should be thinking about systems, not about a technology by itself. So it needs all to be integrated for the best solution, both to meet the energy demand here in Asia and for meeting the climate change demand. We see a lot of growth, for example, in India, very interesting. We recently invested in the equity of Mahindra electric vehicles. We like it very much. The company is doing very well. We have a very long partnership still in India with Tata Cleantech to develop renewables projects, and in 10 years we have developed 10 gigawatts of them. And then we have, of course, all the work we do with banks all over Asia. And I like to mention the first green bond by Khan Bank in Mongolia. I think it's very interesting. And then I think we have to deepen this knowledge and go from a green bond, sustainable linked bond, ocean bond. There is a real issue with marine litter, marine plastics. So I think we have to pay attention to everything. It's not only mitigation.
Ali, obviously Hong Kong, when it comes to traditional capital markets, is well established and a power player. How does it compare to some of the other financial hubs when it comes to sustainable finance and green finance?
So, as you mentioned, Hong Kong has had a lot of experience, and as a result of that, it's taken a very balanced approach. Where relevant, it's introduced mandatory ESG disclosure requirements, and in other cases, it has taken a voluntary approach. As Hong Kong is the financial gateway to mainland China, it's also played an important role in supporting the companies there. Mainland China, of course, is still the world's largest market for both deployments of energy transition technologies, but also the manufacture of these technologies. Many of the solar, wind, EV battery manufacturers in mainland, when they're looking at raising capital, either as a sort of primary funding, if not secondary or tertiary, they look at utilizing the opportunities in Hong Kong.
There are still, though, some pretty significant financing gaps in the Asia-Pacific region, Riccardo. So how exactly could Hong Kong perhaps help plug that? But what else are you seeing?
I think you are absolutely right, and Annabella, I cannot deny that it's true. It is not a matter only for Asia. Here we see it far more because the climate change challenge and gap is bigger, but it is a problem all over the world. So it is really the work of multilateral development banks like IFC of not only investing our own money, which is really a drop in the ocean, but really to attract all kinds of investors that can come to emerging markets in energy transition projects. So that's extremely interesting. I always say a number which for me is very important. In the last decade, middle-income countries attracted $850 billion for climate change, while the less developed countries attracted 12. It's a monumental difference. So we really have to mobilize private sector, and we need to mobilize their knowledge, their funding, and make sure that we develop rules that are strong and transparent and predictable.
Riccardo, when you take a look around the region, where do you see the strongest sort of regulatory frameworks, and what would you propose is required more from regional governments to be able to facilitate more of this financing, and particularly more of the public-private partnerships that we've been talking about?
You are absolutely right. I have to say, I see that from the viewpoint of attracting financing, I can see India has a good legal and regulatory framework. Of course, it can be improved in many things. China as well. So there is always space for improvement. But I think that it is really necessary that we are able to attract private companies. Maybe we are able to de-risk projects, to develop better projects, to make them, as we say, bankable. But above all, and this I can tell you from the IFC and the World Bank viewpoint, we are going in the future, in the current future, so we are really going to take more risk in order to attract private investments. So we will have more equity, more kind of quasi-equity instruments, more guarantees. So I think that it's the work of IFC, World Bank, to work with governments on one hand to develop the reforms and then put our money where we think that the reforms are good in order to make the private investors comfortable and come in big sizes.